Without the Republic of China's contribution, World War II would have taken a different course. Why did the Republic of China matter so much in World War II? Fact 1. Although the ROC only formally declared war against Japan and joined the Allied powers in 1941, it was in fact the first among the Allies to fight against aggression. The ROC was at war against the Axis long before the UK, US and USSR entered the war. The start of World War II was not, as most of the Western world believes, when Hitler invaded Poland in 1939. It was when China was thrust into all-out war against Japan in 1937. The ROC, of all the Allies, may have suffered the heaviest casualties, was at war the longest, had to defend the largest area, and used up the most resources. That the 800,000-strong Japanese army was preoccupied in China meant the Allies were able to hold the front in both Asia and Europe simultaneously. Fact 2. From 1937 to 1942, an impoverished and weak China fought alone, against the odds, and against a highly modernized Japanese military. The ROC also stopped the Japanese army from advancing towards Australia and foiled plans the Axis powers had to converge in the Middle East. Both Churchill and Roosevelt spoke frankly on what would have happened if China fell. The Japanese would have had at least an additional 15 to 20 divisions with which to take Australia and India to march on the Middle East, fight alongside the Nazis, annex Egypt, and cut off all the communication lines to the Mediterranean Sea. This would have put the Allies in grave danger. During World War II, Japan lost a significant part of its military forces in China. If China had not taken part in the war, Russia would not have risked sending its troops, which were well equipped for winter warfare, from the Far East to Moscow. The whole of Southeast Asia could well have fallen into the hands of Japan, and America's air and naval superiority diminished. Fact 3. In 1942, the Chinese Expeditionary Force entered Myanmar to fight alongside the Allies in Indochina, miring the Japanese in the jungles of Myanmar and Yunnan. They rescued 7,000 trapped British troops, and their bravery was admired the world over. Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek was made Supreme Allied Commander of the China Theater, leading Thailand and Vietnam in repelling invasion. The ROC was a stalwart in the war. It gave US and British troops the edge in Southeast Asia and denied the fascist supremacy. The ROC, of all the Allies, was the sole country capable of preventing the advance of Japanese troops in Asia. The ROC's contribution in stopping the Axis advance was equally significant to the Russians stopping the Nazis at Moscow or the British struggle during the Battle of Britain. Fact 4. US tactical military advice helped China turn the tide of the war. China strategically halted Japan's military expansion and prevented the flames of war from reaching the shores of America and other nations. The American Volunteer Group, later designated the U.S. 14th Air Force, flew alongside the ROC Air Force in resisting the Japanese invasion, providing effective air and ground cover. With the might of the Allied powers behind it, the ROC went on to sacrifice countless civilians and soldiers in stopping the Japanese from advancing and in aiding the Allies. The Allied powers of World War II were not just the US, the UK, and the USSR. There was another country, one that suffered disastrous losses but made a huge difference, the ROC. By taking part in the war and joining the Allied camp, the ROC not only saved itself, it also helped save the Allies and enabled the world to leave behind the horrors of war sooner than otherwise possible. The Republic of China was the key force behind the Allied victory in the war against Japan.